when there's death, there's birth. And that's so beautiful. Yet so many people resist that. How do we help people let go of resisting that if they don't believe that there's a birth after, there's something after?
Mm. Can I add one thing to Maureen's question? It's kind of like when she just said that, it seems like it's fear is a big obstacle in that as well.
Maureen, when you speak about death, are you right now considering death of the body as the primary form of death?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about now. Yes, death
Yeah.
in the form of the body.
So as a hospital chaplain, I've worked with families who have a wide range of views about what might be after death.
Mm-hmm.
And some have a real strong conviction that this life is the life that we know. And when the brain stops functioning, consciousness stops, and there's no more self to pass on to. And I've seen families with that perspective die with great dignity and support. So I don't know if a belief in birth after death, like a literal place that we might go to a heaven or a new life, is needed to work with fear. But I do think if we think of birth as symbolic and perhaps death as symbolic, they always are in dialectic. So let's say that I was at a death with a woman who was a poet and her husband was a physicist, and they both were atheists. And she sat with me in the room next to his where he was dying for a moment, maybe an hour, and just spoke about her love for him. And she cried, and her poetry and her remarkable gratitude for having married him, and how hard it would be to say goodbye. And she didn't believe she'd see him again, and she didn't believe there was a place that they'd go. It was just this real, honest, I love him, I'm grateful, this is hard. And there's a new birth of a chapter in her life that's coming without him. And perhaps people, as you say, struggle letting go because love links us. Love is an energy that connects, and it's hard to release people you've spent decades connecting to. And that's to be honored, I think. Yeah. And so Colleen, when you mention fear, I know what fear feels like for me. It's a tightness in my belly. It's a metal taste in my mouth. It's not sleeping well at night. It's headaches in the back of my head, especially. And I think fear for me can be a really helpful teacher because it can teach me if I'm in danger. You know, I was in my book, Holding Space, I described being attacked on a train and how my body knew I was in danger before my mind picked it up. And I've done some good reading on this. And part of that is that when people are aggressive, they release pheromones of aggression that you smell. So the body can smell that it's in danger. Isn't that fascinating?
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Even if the person is smiling at you. And so I think fear can be an ally. I don't think it's always something that we have to overcome or push away. Fear, that kind of body fear, I think can be a good ally. It can also be a great indicator of where trauma might live in the body. So if I'm with a person who I do believe is safe and suddenly I'm feeling afraid, I wonder what was the triggering event that made my core regulatory network start to panic or start to feel anxious or start to feel worried. And death is a really big unknown. And since we are pretty death phobic and in many ways grief illiterate as a culture, I think there's a lot of trauma that's not processed around grief. So when families face the death of people they love, it can bring up the death of people they've loved before that really didn't get grieved well.
Right.
So it's kind of a long-winded reflection. I don't necessarily have answers, but I have thoughts. And just you can take those thoughts and put them with your thoughts and over time find your wisdom.